Welcome to week 3 of the foam terrestrial session. What we're going to do this week is we're going to tie a Chernobyl ant and a chubby Chernobyl second. So that'll be later on in the video. And real quick before we get started, just to kind of shorten some time, you want to go ahead and get a couple of colors. I guess you could use all one color if you like, but we want to get typically 2 different colors and pre-shape the heads for this. It just makes things quite a bit easier. You want to make sure that you already have them cut to length. I'll show you the ones I've cut to length. But these are just some examples of the types of patterns that you can cut into the foam. Now, some of you may have foam cutters, and if you want to use foam cutters, that's fine. Do that. But these are just kind of some of the shapes. I mean, you can even just keep a square head shape, and I've seen that all. I've seen it, all of these, and probably more, to be honest with you, on other Chernobyl patterns over the years. So just keep that in mind. So go ahead and get a couple of those, pre-cut them to shape, or pre-cut them to size and shape, I should say. So that's what I've done here, is I've gone ahead and taken my 2 colors and pre-cut them to the size and shape. Now you can see how they're even on both sides. You will see sometimes that some people prefer to have the bottom piece a tad bit shorter than the top piece of foam. If you want to do that, that's totally fine too. If you want them to be the same size and keep the same shape without any kind of fancy tool, just pinch them together and then use a pair of like craft scissors to cut into the corners, and that way your foam cuts will be closer to lining up, where they will line up. And then you can kind of see it's going to sit about like this. So there's that. And then as far as dubbing is concerned, what I've got here is about a 50, maybe not quite 50-50 blend. Of course, I don't have them sitting here in front of me because I got too much stuff. Well, there they are. Of these 2 of these 2 dubbings, the Starburst Peacock Fibers and Arctic Snow in tan. And so I've got basically like a 30-70 or something like that blend here. And that's what I'm going to use. Now, you can use whatever. There's no, I've seen people tie these in everything from purples, pinks, reds, blues, every color, black, white, it doesn't matter. I think most of them gravitate towards kind of the more earth tone type colors, the yellows, greens, browns, tans, that kind of thing. But you can really use whatever. So I've got a size 8 nymph hook in the vise. The thread I'm going to be using is uni thread in 80 black. And I'm going to start my thread about 2 bodkin widths behind the eye or so, just to kind of give you a little reference. And this is basically going to be the area where we tie the foam in up front. And so as I start to work this back, just building up a little underbody. This doesn't have to be perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I do like having a somewhat decent underbody here. And we're just going to take this back to the barb. It's a real easy pattern, tons of colors, tons of materials you can use. I mean, if you wanted to, you could use peacock herl for the body. I've seen that done. All kinds of stuff. So what we need to do first is go ahead and dub this small section in the back, just from the barb to the point. So it's not going to take much dubbing. I'm going to use a little bit of wax. Whoa, hey, watch out there. Come back up here. There we go. Just to help grab that dubbing. And to cover that short of a distance, we don't really need a whole lot. Now, for as far as the thickness of your body is concerned, it kind of varies on what people like. I'm going to go for basically, I guess, what would be on the smaller side of a Chernobyl ant, which would be 3 times the diameter of the hook shank itself. Some people will go much larger. In fact, I've seen people actually use chenille for the underbody on these, and like a medium-sized chenille. And so that can be quite a bit thicker than some dubbing. So that's another option for you too, if you like. So we're just going to get this dubbing started. And I'm going to tighten it and twist it as I go, making sure it gets on there good. And you make a few passes back and forth. You don't want to have this carry over too far to the front of that hook point, because we want to. If it's better if we can tie in the foam directly to that. I'm sorry, tie in the foam directly to the thread there on the base of the body. I just totally lost my train of thought there for a second. Yes, hello, it's week 3. I'm here. Okay, so if you have any leftover dubbing that you don't like, go ahead and clean it up now if you like. Some people like to have it messy and stuff, and that's totally cool too. It's up to you. Just depends on the overall look you want. So I'm going to take my bottom piece of foam, which will be my yellow, and I want to get it so that it's sitting about even amounts off the front and the back. And this is about the width of the hook itself. Probably should have pointed that out in the beginning. So I'm going to just do a couple of loose turns over. You want to make sure that when you're coming across, that your thread, let me put a second one in, that your thread is lining up on top of itself. Try not to have it jumping all over the place on these. Okay, and then once I have that, I'm going to go right in front of my dubbing and just pull down a little bit. And I'm going to add some more really tight wraps. This thing likes to shift around. They just do that. And so one of the ways you can kind of start to combat that is by getting a little glue involved to help seat it a little better. You can actually put it, I probably should put a dab of glue on the thread base itself, but I didn't think about it until the last second, and the last second was too late. So we're going to get something that looks about like that. Now I'm going to go get my other color. In this case, I'm using the brown. I'm going to line this up same way, same place, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to bring it right over the top with a couple of wraps. Just gently hold everything in place and pull down. You want to have your wraps fairly tight here. And then to try to help solidify, I'm going to start to glue one to the other a little bit into that joint. You don't have to do that. It's just something I like to do to help keep it from wiggling around too much. All right, cool. So once we have that, I'm going to move over and get my round rubber legs. I'm going to use the yellow barred legs on this one. You use whatever it is you like to match, whatever it is you're wanting, or whatever color combination you want. I'm going to do the same thing as we did on the Beetle. Just going to fold this thing basically in half, form that little loop. We're going to trim this out, creating 2 sides. Now if you're careful, you can actually just do that again. And then this will kind of pre-measure all your legs for you. Now you can make them a little bit bigger if you want. You can also make them a little bit smaller, but kind of the idea here is they get out there and kind of disturb the water a little bit. Okay, so to make sure that these guys go where I want them to go, I'm going to turn my vise to the side. I'll start on my far side. And I'm just going to get it to where it lines up about halfway. Now you can kind of see where that's sitting in between those 2 pieces of foam. Now what I like to do is I like to kind of pull that barred rubber leg into the foam. Now that's going to, if you do it this way, that's going to help keep your legs aligned with the side of the fly fairly well. And you can also add a hot spot here in the back if you like. I'm just going to put one in up front on this one, but you can absolutely put one in back here if you'd like to, either with foam or whatever you want to use. Okay, very good. So now I'm just going to grab and draw everything to the back. Oops. Forgot to put my dubbing in. Okay, so I'm sorry, I took a step forward too quickly. So to hide this little black dot underneath, one of the ways you can do that is by actually just dubbing over this section right here, and that'll hide everything. And it also can help force your legs open just a little bit. And sometimes when we tighten those legs down, they like to collapse. So I just want to keep my dubbing noodle really thin here. And we're just going to place some wraps over. Now I can bring that to the front side. Now by doing that, that just kind of covers everything up. It doesn't show a whole lot. If you like it to show, you can add more. But it does kind of just cover up that bottom piece a little bit. And you can do that as much or as little as you like. Now I want to go back to my dubbing and get a little bit more so we can start working out on the actual body itself. These patterns are real simple. They fish well. They imitate a lot of things. Kind of just a good all-purpose pattern. So when you start to dub the body, just make sure you grab everything and work it back. And I'm just going to keep working this guy forward. And we'll come back and clean anything up here in just a minute. I want to keep working this until I get where my thread started. Looks like I'm going to be just a little bit short on my dubbing. Let's go ahead and tie a little bit more in. Those legs are in my way on my side. Alright, I'm just going to pull that off, and I think that's good. So essentially, we've already built the entire fly. We're just going to duplicate what we have in the back up front. I didn't do it last time, I'll do it this time. What you can do is put a little drop of glue right on top. You can also, if you like, you can glue the top of your dubbing down. And so that way when your bottom piece of foam comes over, it'll bite to the dubbing. Okay, so again, just a couple of loose wraps over, hold it in position, pull down, and I'm going to add some nice tight wraps here. I'll go ahead and bring the top one over, same thing, loose wraps, just a couple, pinch and hold in place, just pull down. Be careful not to break your thread. So you should have something that looks about like this. And I'm going to grab just a tad bit more glue. Soak it in. Go back to my rubber legs. Same process. Fold them in half. And we'll just tie them in one at a time. And you want to try to get an even amount. You can kind of see as I pull up if it's even or not, and then it can be adjusted before you make that second turn over. And I'll just pull it right on inside that foam. And you can see how they stick out to the sides. They're not all turned every which direction. It doesn't happen that way every single time, but doing it this way, it happens that way more often than not. As soon as you start to fold it, you can see if that is even before you tighten. Just make sure you set it right in that gap, and then as you tighten, it'll pull it in there. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add a little bit of dubbing right here. And then we're going to put in a little hot spot up front using some McFly foam. Okay. right. That looks pretty good. And you see it's all kinds of hairy and everything. Again, you can take that out if you like, or if you don't mind it, you can leave it in there. So I've got some of this chartreuse McFly foam, and for a bug this size, you can see that the McFly foam is literally a little bit smaller than this foam, or just the same size. I'm going to take off about an inch piece of the McFly foam. Again, I'm going to kind of just, you don't have to do this, but I like to twist it together to try to help collect any of those stray fibers that are shooting around. It makes it a little more compact so that you can just tie this in easily. And I'm just going to place it right in the middle. Just want to make sure that you're getting it right in the middle. Put about 3 to 4 turns over. That's probably good enough. And now we got to finish the fly. If you're not confident or comfortable being able to take your finger, pull this back and stick a whip finish underneath, you can use a half hitch tool, which this just comes on the back of a bodkin, and we can place a couple of glued turns in there. I like doing a double half hitch, just meaning you'll see that there's the thread's gone over the half hitch tool twice. And we'll just slide it on up underneath. You'd want to add glue. Let me do this so you can see it. If you add glue, it's just kind of like a wet whip. Just add it right below there. I'm sorry, right below the eye, up close, and then that way when it comes together and pulls off, all that glue just slid up underneath to where you have it. And that's absolutely acceptable to do if you're not comfortable whip finishing, and if you want to try to challenge yourself, if you haven't done it, just take your fingers, pull everything back, sneak that whip finisher underneath, and I'll just put 5 or 6 turns in there. Again, add a little glue. I like adding glue to the foam patterns because they do tend to wiggle and jiggle on the hook a little bit, and they can be hard to keep seated. All that part is true. All right, so now that we have that, now we're going to cut our indicator. Again, I'm going to take this and twist it. I think it just puffs out better when you do it this way. Now you can cut this as tall or as short as you like. That's up to you. I just lay it across the foam myself. That'll keep it really flat to the bug. But you can totally just trim it out up there if you wanted something a bit higher to see. Maybe you're in some rapids or something. I don't know too many people that fish those rapids, but I've seen it done. I've seen people catch fish out of there, but anyway. But again, I like to just kind of go directly to the foam, and then I've just got this nice little hot spot right there on top, and that's it. That's how we tie our Chernobyl ant. This is a great place to pause if you need to pause before you move on to the next video. Next, we're going to tie a chubby Chernobyl. It's basically done the same exact way as this, so have all your prep work done, like pick your colors and your dubbing and your foam and everything. We are going to move over and to do a polypropylene wing. I'll show you how to do a double wing, and I don't mean double here and double here. I mean two wing. It's really neat. You don't see it a ton, but it can look really cool, and there's a lot of materials you can actually do it with. And then a tail. The chubby Chernobyl has a tail, so we'll get to that here in just a minute. All right, so we're going to jump into tying a chubby Chernobyl. We're going to two main differences here. One is it's going to have wings stand up, very similar to what we did with the indicator that we put on the last one. This also is going to have a tail coming out. So those will be the two main things. I'll show you how to put a double indicator on, or a double wing indicator, and then we'll also do a little hot spot underneath just for fun. You want to go ahead and cut your get your colors and your foam cut and get all of that stuff prepped just like you did for the first one. So if you need to pause, that'd be a good place for that. Same hook, size 8 nymph hook. Same thread. I'm going to start my thread in the same place. I'm just going to start working back a little bit. And I'm just going to go ahead and rip out my tag here. One thing you can do to shorten the tying process of this is to tie the tail in going all the way down. So we don't need a lot, but what I'm going to use for the tail is rainbow crystal flash. And I've just got three strands here off of a half hank. And I'm just going to kind of do the same thing where I just fold them over, kind of like so. And now I'm just going to tie these in just like this. Right here, I can bring it back forward. I want to leave everything right on top. I'm just going to take this and fold it to the back. Now I'm going to pinch everything, or the tail I should say. I want to pinch that all, hold it out the back side of the fly. Now I'm just going to wrap this down. You want to make sure this is nice and tight when you do this. Just wrap this down directly to the shank, making sure it stays on top. You can let go to make sure that it's not flaring either to the left or the right of the fly, and then just recollect everything or adjust it if you need to as you're working. And we're just going to tie this back till we get to the barb. And now we've got our tail in there. Now you can actually just leave this in and cut the tail to length later. If you're not confident with how long you want that tail, I'd suggest waiting. So at this point, we're just going to kind of do the same, take the same approach. We're going to dub from the barb to the point. This time I'm going to switch over and just use some black dubbing. Get a little wax on there just to help my grip. And get a little noodle dubbed on here. I like the sheen of this Arctic Fox dubbing, although it can be a little tricky to dub. If you're struggling with it, once you've twisted it on and got it slid up to your shank, just take a couple of turns around, and now you can pull on it and twist that dubbing tighter without having it move on you quite so much. I'm going to go for about the same size body. Take that out. I don't need that. And I'll just dub the last of this on here. And that'll be, whoa, good to go. Don't snap your thread on that hook point there. It's easy to do. Okay. Get that one out of my way. So I'm going to start with my black piece of foam. I'm going to go ahead and just add a drop of super glue right on top. I'm going to get my foam lined out where I want it. And it'll be the same thing, just a couple of loose wraps over, just making sure that the thread lines up on itself, so it's not jumping all over the place. Once I have two, I'm just going to pull down, and now I'm going to really tighten it down just to kind of lock it in place there. Okay, good. Next I'm going to grab my red foam. Same thing, you can pre-glue, you can glue your thread if you like, you can glue the two pieces of foam together right here if you like. A couple loose wraps, tighten down. Now I'm really going to tighten that in. Okay, I'm not sure why my video just quit recording, so I backed up and we'll do this again. So we're going to do kind of a double wing. So what I've got here is about a 3-inch piece of McFly foam. I'm just going to cut this in half. This is, I have not thinned it out, so this is the full distance or the full circumference of a natural strand of McFly foam. So I'm just going to fold this over and trim this out until it's about, oh, I don't know, 1.5 inches or something like that, 1.25 inches. I'll save the other piece for just a minute. I'm going to go ahead and put this right on top, just like so. And then what we can do is we can slide this over to the side. Now what we need to do, just like week 1, is get our polypropylene. And when it comes on the card like this, one thing that makes this super easy to do for a wing is just unfold a couple strands until you have something like this, or unravel it a couple of times until you have something like that. And then what we want to do is we're just going to go ahead and trim this off. I can't do it with the card hanging up. I tried it on a different take and it did not work. You want to cut it about halfway, so we have something about like this. Now, to make these wings is actually really simple, and we're going to make a bunch of them right here actually. So just make sure it's all lined up and looking basically or formed roughly the same way it was on the card. We're going to come right into the middle with our scissors and just trim. And that's all there is to making the wings. Now you do want to set these aside. We can use them for later. But you do want to go through and thin this out so that it opens up more. Now you can do that now or later, just depending on what you want to do. Use your fingers a little kind of backstop for your bodkin to get in there. But it's better to do that now than when you've actually tied it on, because it could go all nuts on you and really mess your wing up. Sorry, I'm trying to do that in front of the camera. So we've got something like this. I'm just going to bring this back on top now. You don't actually have to move that off to the side. I need the room to show you. And I've seen these double wings or double indicators highlighted with numerous different materials. I actually saw one that was done with deer hair. I'm not quite sure how they did it, but boy, it looked really cool. So we're just going to line this one on top and situate it so it's just right in the middle. Now, again, you don't have to do this step. Okay, and now that we've done that, now I want to slide my wing off to the side. I want to lift up on the indicator part. Make sure you don't cut your wing there. And I'm just going to come up about 1/4 inch or so until it pops open like that, and I've got a good size indicator there. Now once I've done that, I can actually just kind of open this back up and then slide this wing back into the middle. Can you see that or not? Let me move my camera so you can, maybe you can see that a little better. Now you can see that the wing is, you can get it to sit right in the middle of your indicator. So that is an option. You don't have to do it. I've seen some people do it with different materials. It looks really cool. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that that's something you can absolutely do if you like. Now for the legs, I'm just going to use some red legs. We're going to tackle this the exact same way. This time I'm not going to worry about putting any dubbing around the sides or anything like that. You can also go back, not go back, but you can do that if you want here as well. That's, again, totally up to you. So I've just got one 5-inch strand or whatever, the round rubber legs. I'm just going to cut that in half. I'm just going to fold this over. We're going to do that again. So now I've got these little ones. Now I'm going to do it just the exact same way we did the last time by putting them in. Whoops, you got to split that wing again. There we go. There we go. Oh, don't take my wing with you. Okay, that's good. And we can just come over and do this other side as well. You can do the legs, put the legs on before you do the wings if you like. That way you can add the dubbing on the side if that's what you want to do. Just going to work your thread through there. Oop. Get that right in place and make sure they're even and pull down. Okay. There we go. Now it's all tied in well. So again, I mean, the more options you add to this stuff, the longer it's going to take and whatever. But just wanted to show you that that's something you can do and you can play around with if you like. Okay, I'm going to go back to my dubbing. And we're just going to use a little bit here. Not going to use a ton because we're only going to come halfway down the halfway down the shank. I'll put dubbing on the front one so you can see how to go about doing that. Just going to wax up just a little bit here. And work this back and get it going. Something knocked my dubbing off. I don't have the dexterity I need with all this stuff in the way. Get on there, dubbing. There we go. There we go. And we're just going to go halfway. Next, I'm going to move over. If you got a material kit, I'm going to switch over and use this check dubbing in the color Flame. I had somebody say they were having a hard time getting this on. So what you can do with some of these styles of dubbings that can be a little more difficult to work with, just kind of pick and pull, lay back down, pick and pull. Do it a few times. And then what this is going to do is it's going to start to line these fibers out going in one direction for the most part. And just do this a few times until you get them to, just generally speaking, be running in the same direction. You're not going to get it perfect, so I wouldn't try to get it perfect, but that's one way you can get it to dubbing to work a little bit better for you. I'm just going to add this little hot spot right here in the middle. I'm going to work back onto my black dubbing just a fuzz. Okay, that's good. Now I'll move back into my black dubbing. Again, you don't have to do this. This is just kind of option stuff for you to play around with. I probably wouldn't add all of these things to one pattern normally. But I figured try to show you some different things, and you can give you the chance to try a few of these things that you'll find from time to time on different patterns of this nature, and play around with it and see what you like. Okay. Okay. Now same thing, I can glue the top of my dubbing. Push the black side or the black foam down first. Do 2 loose wraps over the top, pull down. Again, you can glue this whole thing if you want. It's really up to you. 2 loose wraps, pull down. The wing sitting there. There it goes. Okay. So you can add your legs first if you like, instead of putting them on last, and then that way we can add the dubbing around the legs to cover up the little spot that you'll have open. Since I'm using black thread and black dubbing, that little spot's not going to matter. But if your thread's a different color than your underbody there, you may not want that showing, and so we'll do it the other way, or a different way, I should say, just to show you how you can tackle that if you like, if you want to go that route. So just like the first one, we'll put our legs in with a couple of wraps. We'll turn it to the side. Oops. And put a couple of wraps in, so now I've got my legs in there. And now we can go ahead and dub. And this time I'll just put a single wing on. So this fly is going to look a little funky at the end, but again, I just wanted to show you some of these things and let you decide what you want to do with your fly. I think it's better that way. Give you options. Okay. So now you can kind of see it with the dubbing in there, like we did on the first one. And then if you want to just put your wing in, you just do the same thing. We'll just skip the indicator portion of it. Just going to get that little V part open and set it right there on top. And just come in. And make sure you leave it separated enough to where you can get your thread through. That's the one hard part about using the indicator underneath the wing. Is getting that wing to sit back, kind of like a chubby naturally would. Want to, anyway. Okay. And that's really it. So now we can go ahead and whip finish the fly. I'm going to go ahead and do a wet whip here, just by adding a little glue to my thread. And about 5 or 6 turns in. With the glue, that'll be more than sufficient. And now we can come in and clean this up, if whatever you want. If maybe you like it all buggy looking and kind of scraggly or whatever. And then now we can come back for the tail. And so the tail on these, it sits out, maybe just a little bit bigger than the hook gap itself. So if I take a stiff pair of scissors, kind of get that, and so what I'm getting at is it come out past the back of the foam. And I'll gently slide my fingers back until I get to that point. And then what I can do is I can just come in and run my scissors along my fingers to get the tail to come out. We'll try and get that to sit up just a little bit. And so there you go. There's a chubby Chernobyl plus some options, whether it's a little hot spot or if you want to do an indicator with a wing. And you can do lots of different materials for your wing too. You can use, just about anything of that similar fiber. You could use EP fibers. If you have those, you could use other polypropylene. You can use Antron off of a card. Although when it gets wet, it's going to tend to want to flop over a little bit. Or once it gets really wet, it will. And some other things too. Whatever it is you like. that's similar in nature. And so there you go. Simple enough. Well, I really appreciate you for joining me for week 3. Can't wait to see you for week 4 when we start diving into doing some bigger hopper patterns that definitely can be used to run larger flies beneath. So a couple really fun patterns. We're going to do I think it's called a GAF hopper, which is real simple. And then we're going to do one that's a little bit more complex. It's a variation of a the name is escaping me now. It's just a slight variation of a pattern I found in a Fly Tires magazine. They used yarn. We're going to use pearl core to make the body, which is really neat. So anyway, well, once again, thanks for joining us for week 3. Can't wait to see you back here for week 4. And as we cross the midway point and start getting ready to head down the home stretch. Yeah. So as always, everybody, happy tying. Take care. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.